I don't know,
Yeah.
but when she came here, she was around 11
Yeah.
or 12. So we have to.
Yeah.
The year of 1894. Let's see, her birthday was on March the 5th.
Mhm.
She was 84 when she died. I I can't remember offhand.
Yeah. Well,
I should
this
have
is
gotten all that
yeah.
information.
Yeah, that's okay.
Anyway, my next
Just
recollection was in the grocery store, more like a delicatessen grocery. It was just a little thing on the corner, a little shop on the corner. And when, Grandpa was an egg handler, but he wanted to go in business for himself and make a better deal.
Mhm.
But he wasn't much of a businessman. So he he would go and get a grocery, set up a grocery store, and it wouldn't turn out so good. And he'd always go back to egg handling.
Mhm. Who did he work for as an egg handler? Was it a big egg company or a big?
Well, he worked for various in St. Louis. He worked for a place, and he always could go back there. He was a good egg handler,
Mhm.
and but he tried his hand at other things,
Mhm.
at grocery stores actually.
Mhm.
Never anything else.
Yeah. Um. Go ahead. What were you going to say? Something else?
Uh, anyway, this grocery store, we lived in the back, and there was no bathtub, so we took baths in these big tubs. These big
Mhm.
laundry tubs.
Mhm. It's big metal,
Yeah, yeah,
hard metal things.
yeah. And I remember when I was a little girl, they had gas lights outside. They didn't have electricity yet through the city.
Mhm.
And the man would come every night with a big long stick
Mhm.
and start the gas light, to make the gas light
Mhm.
go. But it wasn't long after that.
That electricity came in.
Yeah, yeah. And
Uh,
then we lived on Hodemans. We sold the grocery store. Somehow we got rid of it. And Grandpa, or my father, went back to egg handling, and we lived in was it a two-room house or a three-room house? It was just a small house that that's when Lee was born,
mhm.
and we have some pictures of her when she was a little baby. And we played with our friends there.
This was on what's where? This was
On
in a house.
Hodemans.
A house in
We rented a part.
rented
It was one of these houses that has three three apartments, like, or three different places for
mhm.
people to live in. And
To like
we
a.
went to the Hempstead School,
Mhm.
and that's when we used to walk to school, Elm and me.
This was an elementary school, or?
Elementary school. When I went back to St. Louis with my dad, I found that. I
Mhm.
mean, with your dad, with Daddy.
Mhm.
We found that.
When did you go back with Data? I don't remember your trip to St. Louis. It was probably one of your driving through the country trips.
Yeah, it was one of the first ones. We stopped in St. Louis, and I saw my girlfriend, Ann Walkowitz.
Mhm.
We still exchange New Year's cards every year.
This is someone you grew up with.
Yeah, we used to play with on Hodemans
Mhm.
there. And I just got, the last New Year's card I got from her was this recently, and she wrote she has a great granddaughter.
Mhm.
Plus, she has four children, two boys and two girls. And they're quite successful, and they all have children. And
Mhm. They're all still in St. Louis.
yeah, yeah, right. And her husband, Ann's husband, was in the auto parts business. She was quite comfortable,
Mhm.
and he was in the business with his two brothers. He died quite young, but she was widowed, but she was always comfortable
Mhm.
because they had this good business.
Grandpa or great grandpa Solomon, he you don't know how he whether he came through New York or Canada or anything like that.
No, no, I
Yeah.
don't. Although when Grandma came over with her mother,
Mhm.
she didn't go through Ellis Island. She went through another port. I have that information at home too.
Who is this?
My mother,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
she didn't go through Ellis Island either.
Yeah.
She went through another port. I think it might have been Boston or something.
Did she? Oh, did Solomon came first, and then he sent for
His wife and two
a
daughters.
wife and 2 daughters.
Mhm.
Um, and they all settled in St. Louis. And he was a house painter when he got here.
Yeah, but he did something interesting. He made designs and with
So he's sort of an artisan. You mean he drew
yeah, yeah,
murals or?
not murals, no, abstract designs.
Mhm.
And we had them for a long time, but then as we grew older, we sort of fooled around with them and they got lost.
Mhm.
So
So he painted them on the walls, or he painted
no,
them?
we just put it on paper.
So he was sort of an artist. He painted walls for a living, and he was sort of an artist on the
Yeah.
side. Did he
He
sell
died
the
young
art?
too. No,
No,
I
it's
don't know
just
what he
a
did with
hobby
it.
or.
It's hard to know.
Mhm.
All I know is that he did that.
Mhm.
And he died young too. He died in his 50s.
How old were you when he died?
I was quite young.
Yeah.
I remember him. But he was devoted to Auntie Elma. She was the first grandchild.
Mhm.
He would take a picture of her with her every year on her birthday.
Mhm.
And you just saw the picture over the piano with Grandma holding me and then
Yeah.
Grandpa holding Auntie Elma. Well, Grandma says, well, you take pictures with her every year. I'm going to take pictures with Ida.
Yeah.
So that one picture is with me and Grandma.
That's the one over the piano.
Yeah, but
And
there were
who's in it? That's great.
my grandfather Solomon and Auntie Elma and me and my grandmother.
And grandmother Ann.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she didn't take a picture with me every
Yeah.
year.
I see. Now I have to look at that picture again because it's got a lot more meaning now that you're telling me these
Yeah,
stories.
yeah, and they weren't taken at the same time. Mother had those two pictures, and she decided to have it made a composition of it.
Mhm.
So she had that done.
Oh, so they were taken separately, and somebody sort of melded them together.
Yeah, she probably had it done in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And so it's still in the original oval frame, with an oval frame,
Mhm.
and it's hanging there.
And people would just go to a professional photographer and have their pictures taken.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Auntie Elma has the pictures, a number of pictures of her and grandfather every year. You
Mhm.
see her grow, every year. And anyway,
So that's so he was a house painter, and how about Anne? How old were you when she died? Your grandma.
let's see. Lee was just a little kid then.
Yeah.
Um, I must have been my early teens.
What kind of memories do you have of her?
Oh, she was a nice lady, a very pretty lady. And she would either live, after grandfather died, she had no way of earning a living. She would either live with my mother, and they didn't get along,
Mhm.
or she'd live with Auntie Sarah. Auntie Sarah and Uncle Ben were always lived in finer places than we
Mhm.
did. And Uncle Ben had a wholesale grocery house in East St. Louis.
Mhm.
Then it was a nice little town. Now it's just nothing.
East St. Louis. Yeah.
It's just a rough town it's all blacks.
Mhm.
And they had a home of their own that they owned. And my grandmother lived with them most of the time.
Mhm.
And anyway,
So they lived. So they lived. When before Solomon died, then your grandparents lived near you in St. Louis. They lived nearby.
yeah,
And you'd
yeah.
see them regularly when you were little, or.
Well, I think mother and father and her two little girls, Elma and me,
Mhm.
place, and I think my grandmother and grandfather lived downstairs, and mother and father lived upstairs. But when we moved to the Malamphy apartments, I don't remember my grandparents being there.
Mhm.
And we had some landslide there too. And I don't think those apartments exist anymore. I think we tried to find out about them when I went back with Dad.
Mhm.
I wanted to show Dad. The only thing I found was really the Hempstead School.
Mhm.
It was a big school, really. Big elementary school, about 3 or 4 stories.
Mhm.
And anyway, what else?
Yeah. So then you grew up. You went to this school um, with with Aunt Elma,
Mm-hmm.
and of course Leona was a lot younger. Well, let me get to how did you didn't tell you don't know how Grandma and Grandpa met though. You don't know
No.
how they met or
Oh, I mean, my grandmother,
yeah,
my mother and
yeah,
father?
yeah.
No, it's just that they met through landslide, I guess. I don't know whether these people, I don't think they were my mother's landslide, but that she knew all of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how they met, but because they were Jewish, they probably went right in the same circles.
Mhm. Did they? I know they divorced when you were a teenager.
Yeah,
And did they
I
had
must have been about 18 or 19.
Did
That
you
was in
know they were
Detroit.
having a difficult marriage or?
Yeah, they argued over money all the time.
Mhm.
In fact, it was pretty miserable when you see your parents arguing.
Mhm.
And mother wanted to divorce him, and Dad never wanted a divorce. But anyway, they did.
What happened after the divorce?
Well, we still saw Dad all the time.
Mhm.
He kept in touch with us, and he was an egg handler then. He always earned a living, and he was able to save money. When he died, we had a little money left over from him.
Mhm. How
In fact,
how did Grandma get on? I mean, did she?
well, she had a grocery store when they divorced.
Mhm.
In fact, she made it herself. It was an empty store, and she bought fixtures and put them on credit. Somehow she made a living, but the trouble was that when we were teenagers and we were working,
Mhm.
and we would come home at night and relieve mother so she could go in and have something to eat.
Mhm.
And we had a maid in the house that would cook and everything, and probably would pay her a pittance.
Mhm.
And if our boyfriends wanted to see us, they could come to the grocery store.
Mhm.
Thus we went, we had sort of a group of boys and girls that we knew. When we first came over to Detroit from St. Louis, I think I had my 17th birthday party in Detroit. And my Aunt Sarah, she was always a concerned and a giving aunt. She was a good aunt.
Mhm.
She on all the holidays, Uncle Ben was Orthodox. We'd always be invited to their house for dinner and everything. That's where I got my knowledge of kashrus and stuff from my aunt's home.
Because Grandma and Grandpa, your parents weren't religious at all.
No, my father wasn't, and my mother would have been religious if my father wanted it, but he didn't want it, and he brought in tray food. So mother knew how to read Hebrew. She knew how to read and write Yiddish. She read Hebrew, but she didn't know what she was reading. She didn't know the language.
Mhm.
So when we were older and I got married to Dad, we would buy tickets to the synagogue
Mhm.
for her too. She would insist upon paying for it herself, and she would always stay with me for the holidays. She
Mhm.
enjoyed that. That was fine with us.
Mhm.
Dad was always nice about that.
Mhm.
And
see.
But when we were younger, we would always go to Aunt Sarah's house for the holidays.
Mhm.
And when we came to St. Louis, I mean to Detroit from St. Louis, I was at 17 and Auntie Alma, I guess, was around 19. And Auntie Sarah made a birthday party for me so that we would, somehow she knew some young people.
Mhm.
And it was a nice thing. And through them, we met other people and we had friends.
Mhm. So you didn't have, so your whole religious or Jewish background was really through Aunt Sarah and
Yeah.
Uncle Ben.
And once in a while, when we were in St. Louis, Grandma and Grandpa would have enough money to send us to Sunday school,
Mhm.
but it was never consistent.
Mhm.
Maybe it was a term or so, and that was it. So
You didn't go to synagogue or any regular basis.
my father would buy tickets for the high holidays or something like that. Maybe I'd go in there and visit with him or something like that.
Mhm.
And these were in Orthodox synagogues in St. Louis.
So even though he'd go to Orthodox during the holidays, he really never practiced during the rest of the year.
No, he wasn't religious at all.
Yeah, but he felt compelled to go anyway during the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting.
yeah.
How did Aunt Sarah and Uncle Ben meet?
How did they meet? I don't know. Aunt Sarah was a beautiful lady. I have the. It's this interesting thing. I have Aunt Sarah's wedding pictures in my house, and I offered them to Eugenia and Shirley, and they weren't interested in them.
That's
So
too bad.
I just couldn't throw them out. I still have them.
Yeah.
They're beautiful
Save
pictures.
them. They're your relatives too.
Uncle, huh?
They said save them if they don't want them. I mean, they're our relatives too.
Yeah. I just couldn't throw them out.
Yeah.
And
You'll have to show them to me
yeah,
because maybe we could.
Uncle Ben was handsome, and Aunt Sarah was beautiful.
And what did Uncle Ben do? He was a
He was a
grocery
wheeler.
retailer.
He was a wheeler dealer. At the time they lived in East St. Louis, he had a wholesale grocery
Mhm.
business, and he did pretty good.
Mhm.
But somehow he could never end up continuing to increase his fortune. He usually lost it, but he was well known among the wholesale grocers.
Mhm.
So he would work for some of them, and he made a nice living. In fact, he worked in Eastern Market, and there were
In Detroit.
in Detroit,
Yeah.
and people knew him. When he came back from, when they lived in California, and he came back here,
Mhm.
I took him around to his old haunts, and he knew a lot of people then and everything.
What was his last name?
Schatzman,
Schatzman.
yeah.
Yeah.
And anyway,
And when they their children was Eugenia, right?
Eugenia and Shirley
And Shirley.
and Celia.
Celia was the retarded.
Well, she had Down syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were your. Were you close as cousins growing up in St. Louis?
Yeah.
Eugenia
Well,
and
we
Shirley.
always appreciated Aunt Sarah.
Mhm.
She had a car, and she would come over on weekends and take us for rides in her car, take us to the park. That's how
Mhm.
nice she was.
And you didn't. Your grandma didn't. Grandma Ethel Shakowitz didn't have a car.
No,
yeah,
never. And my father tried to buy a car, but he wasn't very successful as a driver,
Yeah.
so he probably sold it.
So he had it and he sold it, and so you just got around St. Louis on streetcars.
Yeah. When Auntie Elma and I were small, our recreation was every Saturday, I guess, or Sunday, was to, we would take a bus or streetcar to a movie house and see a movie.
Mhm.
That was our recreation.
Mhm. That's what, when I was old enough, I'd go with Claudia and we'd get on a bus and go downtown and see a movie in downtown Detroit. So our childhoods were very similar, mine.
Yeah, but we took you every place, Dad
Yeah.
and I did.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, took you all kinds of places.
So you tell me about, so you'd go for rides with Aunt Sarah
Yeah.
and Uncle
I
Ben
know.
did,
Uncle Ben would be working, or
oh,
he
so
would go
just,
to school or something like that.
yeah,
He,
so
was,
he didn't
he was
survive.
always a big mocker
He was busy.
in shul. He always belonged to a synagogue, an Orthodox synagogue, and he would either be president or something like that of the shul. And
Mm-hmm.
we would go there to the high holy days somehow and get us in there
Mm-hmm.
for services or something like that.
So Aunt Sarah would pick you up, and your cousins would be in the car,
Or
right?
something. Yeah, we were. I always loved Celia and Shirley and Eugenia, and then when Shirley came along,
Shirley was like a lot, what, she's younger.
she's
you know, like-
younger. Yeah, she's the same age as Lee,
So
and they
yeah,
were good friends.
so she really didn't come into play until you were a teenager then.
Well, no, I was 9 years old when when Lee was born.
Yeah.
So Shirley was born, I think about 5 weeks later or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
and they were good friends.
So Eugenia and Celia were good friends, and
Well, Celia, being a Down syndrome child,
She was,
when I was small, they would let Celia go out to play with the children, and I wouldn't let anybody tease her
mm-hmm.
because we loved Celia. She was a lovable person,
Mm-hmm.
and she, as you know, they're all degrees of this retardation,
Yeah.
and she was pretty smart.
Mm-hmm.
For her age.
Did they live near enough for you to go play with Eugenia whenever you wanted, or?
No,
You
no,
had to-
there was, Aunt Sarah would usually pick us up.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, well, we lived in St. Louis and they lived in East St. Louis. She had to cross the bridge
Mm-hmm.
to bring us to her house. And she did.
Is Eugenia close in age to you, or is she?
Eugenia is 4 years younger than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And Celia was maybe a year younger than I.
Mm-hmm.
And I always regretted that I had a cousin that couldn't be a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Celia remembered us through all the years when the last time she was alive and we were in California, she remembered who we were.
Mm-hmm.
She knew Al and she knew me. She remembered us. Whatever she knew, she retained. In fact, at one time, my aunt had her private tutoring lessons for her to teach her how to read. Whatever she learned, she retained.
Mm-hmm.
She was a real sweet person.
So what kind of things did you, and you went to movies, and what?
Well, then when we were teenagers, before I came to Detroit here, we started dating, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
We came to Detroit, we sort of met these people that my aunt brought into the house.
How did the family? How did you end up moving to Detroit?
Oh, yeah. Uncle Ben moved here and he had a grocery store. Or maybe he had a job, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And because Mother and Aunt Sarah were just two sisters with no other relatives.
Mm-hmm.
It was during the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow Dad and Mom saved up some money, so they moved here to Detroit. And I guess Uncle Ben had some kind of a business because Elma worked for him
Mm-hmm.
as a secretary or something before we moved to Detroit. And then Mother and Dad came here.
Elma moved first before.
Well, she stayed with Aunt Sarah,
Yeah.
and then she moved back to St. Louis. In fact, she worked in St. Louis for a grocery store as a cashier, and she had some friends there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a Jewish business. It was a pretty big grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
and then Mother and Dad came to Detroit, and they opened up a grocery store. This was a sort of a supermarket. There was a butcher shop there, and a fruit market. And Dad and Mother opened up the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
It was on,
This
it was
is in
on
Detroit.
12th Street.
Yeah.
It was on 12th Street.
That was a Jewish neighborhood then.
Yeah, yeah. But Dad couldn't
Was
make a go
12th
of
Street,
it.
you know what the cross street was? Just or near where It was.
Well, when we moved here, we got an apartment near 12th Street on Euclid,
Mhm.
and this was about a number of blocks north of Euclid.
Mhm.
So that's about all I can tell you.
So Uncle Ben had moved. Uncle Ben and Aunt Sarah had moved to Detroit,
Hmm.
and then Grandma Ethel
And,
wa-
and my father.
decided that she wanted to be near her sister,
Hmm.
and Ethel and Samuel, your parents were still married, right, at that
Oh
time.
yeah,
So they just decided to pick up and go to Detroit too, because that's where the relatives were.
that's right.
Yeah, that's something. And then so Grandpa Samuel was he was either working here as an egg handler and just quit his job and moved to Detroit. Is that it? And this was the
Yeah, they moved to Detroit, and the money that they saved up, they invested in the grocery
Yes,
store.
and they opened the grocery store on 12th Street.
Hmm.
And this is still this is in the 30s. This is during the Depression, you said.
Yeah, I was about 34, 35.
Yeah. And you were how old
I was
then?
about 17.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Aunt Alma had moved ahead because she had
Well, she had moved ahead and then came back
yeah.
to us. She worked for Uncle Ben for a while.
She moved ahead what for a year or two ahead or a couple months ahead and then came back and
Well, you'll have to ask Auntie Elva that.
yeah.
And anyway,
And then
you remember when we were talking about me? Auntie Elva was already in. Oh, Auntie Elva went to the World's Fair.
yeah.